Hello and welcome to the 2013 Auto Trader Festival of Power. We're here at Santipod Raceway. Glorious weather, but freezing cold. Very challenging conditions to be running race cars in, but everybody so far has done very, very well indeed. We've also got loads and loads of other things going on around the site. We're going to show all of those to you right now. We hope you enjoy it. Well, there might have been snow on the ground, but the action on the track was hotter than ever. We have jet cars, a rocket bike, top fuel dragsters, pro mods, and all your favourite sportsman classes. Plus, there's the brand new Nitro Funny Car Challenge, which is covered in its own webcast. And of course, there was just as much to see away from the track all weekend long, with hovercrafts, stunt cars and bikes, aerobatic displays, and so much more. We've got highlights of the entire event, and also we'll be taking a look at a couple of drag racing classes in detail. And where better to start than a brand new visitor to Santipod? It's Gerd Habermann, all the way from Germany, and his awesome jet car. This is the first outing for everybody on the brand new surface, and the plan is for Gerd to race side by side with Martin Hill in Fire Force later on in the day. So the crew from Germany lowering the body on the Dragon Hunter. This car is very famous indeed in Germany. Normally runs at the night show near the Hockenheimring. But come over to Santipod for this weekend, like I said before, to hopefully race side by side with Martin Hill. First time for nearly 10 years we've seen that at Santipod Raceway. So this is one of Gerd's earlier quarter-mile runs. I think he's going to face a bit of a tough task though, because this car isn't quite as quick and fast as the Fire Force, so it should be really interesting to see how that one develops. So the first of our featured classes, the first of our two featured classes I should say, is MSA Pro Modified. In qualifying, Wayne Nicholson near side of the racetrack in the Lucky Devil Corvette, going to the #1 spot with a storming 6.6 second run and a personal best mile-an-hour speed. The new track surface obviously suits him just fine. This was other qualifying action near lane closest to the camera. That's Kev Slyfield. This is everybody's first runs of the year, don't forget. And it was a bad one for the man with the Willis from down there in the West Country. A huge accident. Unfortunately, the car got out of shape. Went over the racetrack behind Graham Ellis. Just missed the Superbird. We see it again in replay. And the back end goes on the Willis. Kev doing everything he can to try and keep hold of it. There was some issue with the car on the burnout, and unfortunately on the run it got worse for Kev Slyfield. So that was his first run of the season, would you believe? And let's hope he's not out for too long. So a few views of the other things that are going on over the Festival of Power weekend. Loads to see and do. And away from the track and up into the sky to be exact, it was hard to spot the difference between the Red Bull radio control aerobatic display and the real thing. There it is there. That is actually a scale model. Well, that's Super Street bike racer Steve Venables watching as daughter Gemma competes in 850 bike. Super Street Bike is the second of our featured classes, and here is Steve Venables.
I've managed to get down to 741 and 197 mile an hour in these cold conditions, so yeah, not bad at all. Considering the suspension's not unloading at all now, it's been cold, I believe you'll see figures around 205, 206 come the main event. It's so smooth.
Well, the way they're running, we may even see them this weekend. Steve Venables in the near lane, up against Steve Wood. This is round one action. And Steve Venables, with an almost flawless run, takes the win through to the semis and runs his first ever 200 miles an hour run in a 7.2 elapsed time. Far lane, Thomas Granick, and near lane, Graham Dance, the super street bike riders that could get hold of the racetrack this weekend, were running very fast indeed. And Thomas Granick was one of those, 761, 189 miles an hour in what is virtually freezing conditions. So Steve Venables' teammate in the near lane, Graham Bouchin, going up against Gary Bow in round one super street bike action still. You can still see the snow on the ground next to the sign. And it is Graham Bouchin, Steve Venables' teammate, taking the win with a 7.68 second run. Looks like sevens are cheap in this round one action. Near lane, Danny Cockrell from the UK up against Peter Granicke. That's the other one from Germany. And Dan takes the win, 7.73, 182 miles an hour. Everybody getting hold of the racetrack really well. And of course, you never know who or what you're going to bump into at the Auto Trader Festival of Power here at Santa Pod Raceway. Well, we showed you some of this earlier, and here it is, something incredibly special. We haven't seen this here at Santa Pod Raceway for a number of years. The first side-by-side jet car race for over a decade. So this is the first of our 3 scheduled match races. They're racing to the 8th mile, which is effectively half track in the far lane. The Firefalls, driven by Martin Hill from the UK. We already saw a little earlier, Gerd Habermann from Germany with the Dragon Hunter car. Doing the crowd pleasing afterburner pops behind the start line. Lots of smoke and flame. Dare I say, warming everybody up as well. So this is actually a race between these two. They're both going to come into stage. The lights will burn down. And it's Gerd Habermann who goes too quick. He actually red lights. And Martin Hill sneaks past him at the finish line. Don't forget those are 8th mile numbers, folks. 4:31 at 199. See him replay again. They were both almost perfect on the tree, but it was Gerd who went red, and Martin took the first of the match race wins. Well, we're back to racing, and it's Pro Modified time. And into round 1 eliminations, that's Rick Garrett with the beautiful Willys he imported from America last year, going up against Graham Ellis from the UK. Now, 2 very different power plants in these cars. Graham is a twin turbo car. Rick Garrett's is a nitrous engine. The track is really, really cold for this round 1 elimination run. Graham Ellis getting way out of shape at the top end and just goes over the centre line, takes out the cones. Even though the wind light's in his lane, that knocks him out of competition. So your next pair will be in the far lane, Jean Doulemont from the very south of France, up against Andy Robinson's brand new Camaro. Oh, Jean suffers a nitrous backfire through the top of the engine. Andy Robinson with a very, very lucky round win. Not his quickest elapsed time ever, but I think he could care less getting down the racetrack. So, moving into the semis, we didn't see his round 1 elimination run. That's Wayne Nicholson there with the Lucky Devil. He was our #1 qualifier. Rick Garrett through. Luckily, he'll be the first to admit by virtue of Graham Ellis going over the centre line. So this is a heads-up drag race between the two UK racers. And Wayne Nicholson rolls through the lights. It will be Rick Garrett. Well, his lucky day continues. Wins by virtue of a red light. Still goes 7.66, and in these Arctic conditions, that's still pretty good. So moving into the Super Street Bike semi-final, Steve Venables near lane up against Thomas Granica. Steve Venables in round one went over 200 miles an hour. He's sitting up on the bike a little bit, not going so smoothly this time round, but he still gets there first, most importantly, with a 7.57, 194, outclasses Thomas Granica, 7.69, 188. So could it be an all-Ven racing final in Super Street Bike? That's his teammate in the near lane, Graham Bouchian, Danny Cockrell down there in Essex in the far lane. And Danny's out of it already. It will be an all-Venables racing final. Let's just see how quickly Graham Bouchian can run. And he runs quicker than his teammate. Well, we're here behind the start line at Santipod Raceway at the 2013 Festival of Power with Eric Tabor. Now, Eric, the conditions this weekend are very cold. Does that make a difference to what you do?
Yeah, of course, the condition is not for the rocket, but we make what I can do. But the problem is when it's very cold, the reaction on the catalyst pack is very bad. And we have not, I think I use 20% of the powers. And this event, it's strange for me because we make a very big modification this year with a new nozzle setup, and I would like to try the difference to go quicker of before when I run 5.1. But this weekend it's impossible to run very fast. Yeah, if I want to run very fast, I need minimum 35 degrees.
So Eric there with his traditional salute to the sky in reference and respect to the great and late, unfortunately, Sammy Miller from the USA, really the father of rocket car racing worldwide. And a lot of the technology that he developed is in Eric's rocket bike. So he's building up the pressure in the tanks before he sets himself off down the quarter mile here at Santipod. Freezing conditions for everything else that needs grip are obviously quite tricky, but for Eric, no such problems whatsoever. It's just that the rocket engine doesn't tend to like the freezing cold conditions. So just venting a little bit of that pressure that builds up in the tanks through the two boosters at the back of the bike. And here we go, Eric Tabor all the way through the quarter mile, leaning off the bike, trying to keep it straight. And he did go through the finish line, quite quickly indeed. 5.83 at 203 miles an hour, and he still clicked it off before the end. We're here in the staging lanes with Gert Habermann, one of the two-car team that have been match racing here this weekend. Gert, your first time here at Santipod with your own car. First of all, how are you finding it with the jet car?
It's very fine. I like it. The weather is good. Good for jet motors, and I like to run against Martin. So I hope, we get a good show and a good run, good times.
It was a very good show yesterday as well. Now, you really treated it like a race, didn't you? Because you only just red lit. Were you really trying hard?
Yeah, that's my job, track racing. And on the starting line, you win or you lose the race. So
what's it like actually having a car in the other lane in your jet car to race against you? You used it with your other race car, but with this, what's it like?
Yeah, it feels good. So boom, 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 boom. You hear the other one, and it's very, very good feeling, and I like it. So I hope we can do this in the future.
Well, Martin yesterday saw the first side-by-side jet car runs in this country for quite some time. It was incredibly exciting to watch and really good fun. What was it like in the car?
I think it made a nice change. We had some competition in the other lane. It was nice to get on the lights and just see what we can do.
Well, the good thing is as well, I mean, keeping our fingers crossed for future reference as well, that we may see more of this sort of thing in the future. That's something you'd like to see?
I think so. I think, what we're doing, we're taking tentative steps, just running over the 8th mile, put some confidence back into things, and then over the next year or something, progress it up to 1,000 foot, and then probably run full quarters eventually and produce more cars wanting to race.
Well, that huge fog bank over the starting line is not because the clouds rolled in, it's because the jet cars have rolled round for the last of their 3 scheduled match races. Martin Hill has already won the first 2, so this is a little bit for pride. Germany against the UK. As you can see, the house car at Santipod Raceway there, going up against the Dragon Hunter. from Germany. Can Gerd claw one back for the German fans here at Santa Port, or will it be a complete whitewash? Well, it's a green light drag race. Martin Hill absolutely demolishes his opponent this time round. Once again, a 3-0 drubbing, 4:08, 210 miles an hour, much quicker than he went earlier in the day. Well, it's nostalgia fuel all to time, and we've got Chaos and Nothing Fancy, although it's rather fancy to be honest with you, Nick Davis and Joe Bond, Nitro versus Methanol. That's Nick with the Chaos car, got low ET of the weekend so far, down in the 6s, would you believe? Unbelievably difficult to get Nitro cars down the racetrack in freezing cold conditions. We can't say just how cold it was. With the wind chill, it was actually minus for most of it. So Joe Bond in the far lane with the methanol-powered car. And what a great side-by-side race that is. And it's going to be Joe taking the win. Look at that, 684, 204. What a tremendous side-by-side race to finish the weekend for those guys. And one last rocket blast down the quarter mile for Eric Tabor as we move into all of our finals. Well, here we go with the final of Pro Modified. The luckiest man on the property, that's Rick Garrett, by virtue of a centreline crossing and a red light. He's in his first ever Pro Modified final. Up against Andy Robinson, the chassis builder from Hampshire, with a brand spanking new this weekend Chevy Camaro with a supercharged engine on board. Well, Andy spins the tyres off the line. Rick Garrett, no such problems at all. Motors on down the Auto Glim lane and takes the win with his first 6 of the weekend, a 6.98. So, Super Street Bike final, all men racing. Far lane, it's Graham Bouchy, near lane, Steve Venables, and it looks already like Steve is in the lead, but just how close was that? Steve takes the win, 7.30. Unbelievably quick for these conditions. Well, sticking with 2 wheels, this is the 950 bike final. Trying to run as quick as you can, but no quicker than 950. And in the near lane, it's Dave Smart up against Andy Burfitt. And unfortunately for Dave Smart, he goes too quick for the 950. But man in the other lane. So we move on with the 850 bike final. Same thing, but for 850 instead. Jake Michelle near lane takes the win by virtue of Martin Wilson breaking out, going way too quick for 850 there. Okay, junior drag bike, yes. Kids bike classes as well. This is a dial-in class where they choose what they want to run and try and run as close to it as they possibly can. Near lane is Lewis Davis up against Scott Collier, 2 families with great motorbike drag racing history, and it's Lewis Davis taking the win there. So we have Sportsman ET as well. Near lane, Craig Wright, your champion from last year, up against Nick Hale. Now once again they choose the times that they want to run and try and get as close as they can without breaking out and obviously going across the finish line first. And the man that did the best job of that this time round was Craig Wright, taking the win with the little Civic. Next last, VW Pro, far lane, Matt Atwood. Another dial-in class where they choose their number up against James Hodson, and James a bit too way far behind, I think, that time. Wisely, Matt Atwood backs out of it, goes 11.58, and takes the trophy. VW Pro. So this is VW Sportsman. Yes, that is a road standard Golf in the near lane. It's being driven by James London. In the far lane is Dean Clatworthy with the Beetle. They do choose their own times, as I've said before. And who does the best job? It's Dean Clatworthy in the far lane with the Beetle. Does break out, but by the lead. This is the final in competition bike. Liz McCarthy, the lady, doing very, very well this weekend, down in the sevens all the time, up against Phil Lemon. It's ladies first this time round. Liz takes the win in comp bike. Okay, funny bike, Stu Crane up against Stefan Schmidt, and Stu Crane making no mistake whatsoever. Awesome run down the Auto Glim lane in the sevens too. Pro Stock bike final. Near lane, Mark Smith. Far lane, Lenny Paget. In a great side-by-side race, it is Mark Smith taking the win with a 7.69. Well, we've seen junior bikes, now junior dragsters. Rhiannon Bellini and Joe Kennett. That's Rhiannon in the near lane, taking the win. Unbelievable race against Joe Kellett. Wild Bunch, Keith Rapton near lane, Sean Law in the far lane. Again, this is dial-in racing, folks. Going towards the finish line, it will be the man on the far side of the racetrack, Sean Law, taking a very well-deserved win. Pro ET final, near lane, Simon Innes up against Keith Herbert. Again, dial-in drag racing, that's the numbers that you see on the board at the finish line, but the man doing the better job that time round was Keith Herbert. Supercomp, which is 8.90, so it's heads up, meaning they both leave when the tree goes green. But no quicker than 8.90, and it is the man in the dragster, Paul Brown, that took that one. Our next final, Super Street, Mark Watkins in the near lane with that really cool looking little Datsun up against the Camaro of Harrison Brown, looking for 1090s. The man that does the best job is Harrison Brown. Supergas, we step up 190 class to the next one. This is 990. John Morton near lane. Mark White on the far side of the racetrack, way out in front. It was an ill-gotten gain. He went too quick, way under the 990 index. It was John Morton taking the win. This is Top Speed Automotive Street Eliminator. These are street cars, folks. They even go on a cruise in the win to the Mustang with the parachutes out. It's a street car, honestly. 803, 187 miles an hour. Well done to him, and you got losing out there. This is your final in Super Pro ET, the quickest of all our dialing classes, and it was the man in the near lane, Pete Walters, taking the win by virtue of Scott Hauser's red light on the far side. So that was it, folks, the 2013 Auto Trader Festival of Power here at Santa Pod Raceway. 3 days of entertainment for all the family. We'll be back here at Santa Pod for the FIA main event in just a few short weeks. It's going to be a big one, so see you then.